I am so excited to share this recipe with you. Today I'm going to show you how to make the most effective, most delicious cold and flu tonic using wild elderberries and raw honey. Now, for those of you that follow me on social media, you've seen this process kind of unfold. The picking and the talking about the elderberries. These guys have been on my counter for several weeks fermenting. They only really need about a week. So for those of you that have small children and that you want to do this, keep the fermentation to a very minimum, like 4 days is probably as much, 4 to 5 days, as much as you'd want to go. After that, the alcohol starts to develop. The honey actually, in essence, starts turning into mead. So this one is quite alcoholic after 3 weeks. And I didn't intend it to be so. It's just that I got busy and I wanted to show you the video and I just didn't have time to do a video. So this is on the heavily fermented spectrum, we'll put it that way. So you can see there's juice oozing out here onto the plate, and the berries are all pushed up into the lid. Now that's due to that fermentation, that activity of all of that gas coming up through the berries. Now for those of you that are skeptics, I'm going to read an abstract to it was a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled study, which is kind of the grand poobah of medical studies. I'll put the link below so you have all the information. 60 patients aged 18 to 54 suffering from influenza-like symptoms for 48 hours or less were enrolled in the randomized double placebo-controlled study during the influenza season of 1999 and 2000 in Norway. Patients received 15 milliliters of elderberry or placebo syrup 4 times a day for 5 days. Symptoms were relieved on average 4 days earlier, and use of rescue medication was significantly less in those receiving elderberry extract compared to placebo. Elderberry extract seems to offer an efficient, safe, and cost-effective treatment for influenza. These findings need to be confirmed in a larger study. So, what was it, 60 patients? That's a very, very, very small study, but it's very compelling. And with elderberries growing all around the world, like we have seen them growing literally on almost every continent we've been to, why not? I had to do a quick wardrobe change. I just realized I was wearing white and staining black. So wear black when you do this. So for those of you that haven't followed along on social media, I'll run through the process. So I went up to my brother's to pick. The elderberries grow around here, but I waited a little bit too long and they were just past their prime. So he's at a higher elevation. It took me about 10 minutes to pick enough elderberries to fill up this. This is a 3 liter. I think this is a 3 liter jar. Now the thing with elderberries is the stems and the leaves and sometimes the bark are a little bit on the toxic side. So you don't want the stems in your shrub. So you can A, freeze them and then just shake them right off the branches, or just do what I do. And I sat down on the porch and I had company with my chickens. They love elderberry tasks because they get all the ones that fall to the ground. So I just picked them off, and it took me maybe 40 minutes or so. Once they were all destemmed, I just kept pouring honey over the top, and I filled this jar with honey so that the honey went over the level of the elderberries. And it took a little bit of doing. Now the honey, it's going to take a while for it to percolate down in amongst the berries. So just sit the jar there. You know, it might take you 2 hours total. Every time you come into the kitchen, just pour a little more honey in, pour a little more honey in, and let it filter down. It does not need to be rushed. Okay, so now that these guys have been sitting in my sink for a couple weeks, they're fully fermented. You can see there's a lot of juice still left in the berries, but they're shriveled up a little bit. So I'm gonna take these guys and just pour them into my strainer. Woo! Now I could just let these just drain on their own, but there's so much yummy juice in these berries. So I like to take just a rubber scraper and just push down on them. Now these berries do have a seed in them. If you're somebody that's very sensitive and you don't like seedy things, you can just compost them. But they're really wonderful if you spread them out on a sheet tray and put them in your freezer. Freeze them, break them up into little bits, and then just toss those into your smoothies in the morning. Just a little shard of frozen elderberries. And that way you get all of the fiber and anything that's left that's yummy and delicious in the residue from this project. I can also take these berries and flavor my kombucha with them. So if I freeze them and leave them in the freezer, then when I go to make kombucha, I can just put a little shard of elderberry in there. Once you strain out your elderberry syrup, it's ready to use. I like to store mine in these flip-top bottles. It's just a really convenient, easy way to keep it, and it looks beautiful. These are not in my Amazon store. These are actually from IKEA, and I love them. They're really, really heavy glass, and they hold up underneath carbonation, which this is slightly effervescent and carbonated because of the alcohol. Close it up, give it a label on there so you know what year and what it is, and refrigerate it. Now this will keep indefinitely. Now here's the last bottle from last year's brew, and I like to have maybe 3 liters to go into winter, and that's for the 2 of us. Glenn doesn't eat this as much as I do. And my favorite way to eat it is actually on yogurt. Just a bowl of plain yogurt, unsweetened, with a drizzle of this elderberry syrup. It is so good. And a lot of times I'll make smoothies for Glenn, or what we call like blueberry ice cream in the evenings with yogurt and frozen blueberries, and I'll just float a shot of this on the top. It's so good. But you can just take it by the spoonful as you would a preventative tincture to get you through the winter. But if you do start to feel the symptoms of a cold, like sore throat, watery, scratchy eyes, lethargic, bump it up to 4 or 5 tablespoons taken regularly throughout the day. And I hope that elderberries, grow in your area and that we're not too late. I did put this project off maybe a month later than I wanted. But next year, if you can't get a hold of them this year, you'll have something to look forward to. So try it. It's absolutely delicious. It tastes like, kind of like, if you let it go more towards the alcohol side, it's almost like a cross between a berry and a grape, and it has a little bit of that alcohol mead, that honey mead flavor. It's super delicious.